This is Matt from MGMT Boston. On this episode of The Lantern, we are right off the common today at Innospark Ventures with Brent Willess, an early stage investor. Brent, what are you and your team building here?
Nice to see you again, Matt. I saw you drop off this morning. Our kids are in the same kindergarten class out in Wellesley. I'm excited. I joined Innospark. This is my fourth week. It's awesome drinking from a fire hose, but learning a lot right now. So Innospark Ventures, we are an early stage venture fund based here in Boston. We invest in really early stage companies. Definitely love technical founders building and using AI across enterprise, physical, real world to healthcare and life sciences. We like being the first check into companies, and when we put that first check in, we really like to build alongside the company with them. We're a team of former founders and operators and scientists and engineers, now turned investors. And so we love working with founders as they build incredible companies and really change some of these foundational industries.
Yeah. Now it's the fall of 2025. There's so much happening in the AI world. Like everything you described, those are like trillion-dollar markets. So what are you seeing, whether it's the market or at Innospark, like what are you focused on in the fall through the end of the year?
I think we're really focused on doubling down on technical expertise. So one of the things that we do here at Innospark that I'm really enjoying is we have a technical residence program. And so that means we really work closely with the amazing folks out of the university ecosystems, the research labs, and then bring them into Innospark to effectively help us evaluate companies, but then also they're starting to think about starting their own companies and whatnot. And so how we can help them as they think about finding co-founders, finding that initial go to market, and then if they want to start a company, think about that initial capital raise and whatnot. I think the other thing that we're really excited about here is that leaning into Boston's tough tech roots and the incredible ecosystem we have here, from obviously the Boston Dynamics, but you have Kiva, which became Amazon Robotics. You have Formlabs and Desktop Metal, iRobot, so many incredible hardware companies here in Boston. And we've invested in a number of companies in that space as well, including my time before Innospark when I was at Founder Collective from Desktop Metal and Formlabs and whatnot. And so we're really leaning back into that. So doing events in that space, I spend a lot of time at the universities. If you're building in either of those spaces, we're really excited to chat.
Definitely reach out to Brent. Now, Brent, you have an awesome background. You've done a few things in your career. What have you learned that you would pass back to? Maybe it's early stage founders, maybe it's operators who want to grow their career, about sort of what it takes to excel in the Boston startup ecosystem and globally.
Yeah, and just for some context, so before I joined Innospark as a Founder Collective, another firm here in Boston over in Cambridge, was there for 5 years. And then before that, I was early at Uber. I was there for 6 years. I helped launch and scale operations and product across the US and Canada, also the public transit business, and supported the product strategy for the rider team. Really fun, very, very bumpy, as you can imagine, but lots of learnings. So for early stage founders, I always think the first thing is don't chase themes. By the time something is a theme, think about why it is a theme. It's usually because companies that were seed stage a few years ago have now raised massive rounds and are now the hot companies today. So if you're building in themes today, you're kind of a few years behind. And I also think about this from an investor, is like as an investor, if I'm a seed stage investor, I shouldn't just be investing in the themes of today. I want to invest in the companies that are going to become the themes, that are building the future themes and whatnot. So if you're a founder, focus on the problems that you're passionate about. Find a problem that no one else is going after, or one that you're uniquely suited to go after and solve. And I think that is, one, much more meaningful, but then also, I think, way more fun. I think the second thing we always think about is use cases over market size. Investors like myself, we are terrible at estimating market sizes and TAM. We're always either too little or too far above. And I think for us, just simplify. As a founder, focus on building that MVP, that early product, and find a customer that is obsessed with it and wants to pay for it. And find out what kind of, the ICP and the go-to-market, where they come together, right? Because then from there, you can really scale beyond that. And the other reason why I focus on use cases versus market size is because there's just many times where you'll undervalue something that actually could be really, really impressive. Going back to Uber, a lot of folks looked at Uber and thought, wait, this is just replacing taxi cabs. But when you looked at the early riders of Uber, they were people that weren't using taxi cabs. And they were using Uber not to replace a taxi ride, but to replace a car ride or to replace public transit. And so then you realize, wait a second, this is way bigger than just the taxi cab industry. And then the third thing I say is this: design for what matters most. Simple over complexity any day of the week. Goes back to obviously MVP and stuff, but we think about, like with Uber, the Uber Rider app was redesigned like so many times over 15 years. And ultimately the only thing that matters was ETA, is my car close enough, and price. Is my car getting surged or surge price? That's what matters most. It's not if it's a really, really pretty app or it's not, it's the basics, right? And so I think for founders, don't try to overcomplicate it. A simple and delightful user interface, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, that's great advice for early stage founders. Now, last but not least, like how can we help you here at Innospark now grow here in Boston and beyond?
Yeah, I appreciate the ask. I think of what can investors do for Boston? Like what can we do? And I think there's so many great companies here that are building in many different types of categories. From, you have a founder dinner and you have founders at the same table that are working in fintech or consumer AI like Asuno, or they're building in deep tech, or they're building in a medical grade device, or they're building in really, really deep AI or hardware and robotics. And so all these different companies, I think our job as investors is to connect the dots. Help founders find their co-founders, find their first employees, find their first customers, find their first investors. That's our job as investors, is to help these companies get off the ground with early stage capital. And then the second thing is our investors, we need to amplify their stories. I think there's a lot of amazing companies. There's a lot of great companies that are built here. And I think our job as investors is to share their story and amplify it for the future success of the company, for fundraising and for recruiting and whatnot. So I think that's how we can help. If you can help me, if you are building in this space, if you know someone is building and just wants to have a conversation, I am here. And I think that's the only ask that I have for anybody.
This is Brent from Innospark. If you're an early stage founder, he should be on your distribution list. Matt from MGMT Boston in this episode of Lantern. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt.